Hello and welcome
Hello.
to Social Media Saturday, a new series where I talk with marketers and business owners about social media trends and what works for them on social media. And today I'm joined by Stephania Ochs, who is a really dear friend of mine and is also the founder of The Sweat Obsessed and is an online fitness coach. So, hi, Stephania. Thank you so much for joining me and kicking this series off.
Absolutely. It is such a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I am really excited, not only to do this with you, Shelby, but then to further learn from everyone else you interview down the line.
Yay. So, a little bit of background on Stefania. I'll let her introduce herself in a second, but Stefania and I have been friends for 10 years since college. We started teaching group fitness together way back then. And so, in those 10 years, I've been really able to see her blossom and grow her business. And we actually started our first business together. So, that was at the beginning. But, Stefania, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your business.
Awesome, Shelby. So, as Shelby already said, I am in fitness, and that's originally how we met. I've stayed in fitness for all of those 10 years, dabbled in a couple of different things along the way, and hustled along the way, so had some odd jobs along the way. But I find myself always coming back to streamlining to fitness and realizing that that is really where I want to go with the future. And so I've done a lot of in-person Group X. That's probably been the bulk of my 10-year career so far. Although I've very much transitioned into doing one-on-ones in person and then further developing an online training program, which is really what my end goal is, to have that be my main one thing. So the Sweat Obsessed is my online brand. It was basically born out of the pandemic, but I found a lot of joy out of creating it. Something that I find really interesting is that I thrive and love working with people in person. But when I had the online program and we were kind of all kept from one another, it showed me a route of fitness that I would have never gone had it not been for the pandemic. I didn't think that online training could be as much fun for myself and the clients as it proved to be. So really inspired in that sense to just keep making my mark online and connecting women from all over the country, all over the globe, who are like-minded and want to make strides in their, fitness lifestyle.
Yes, yeah, and you have grown it to be such a beautiful community. And something really key that you said there was that you've started TSO really during the pandemic. And I mean, I remember when that happened, and you really used social media to really catalyze that. Could you tell us more about how you used Instagram and YouTube to start the Sweat Obsessed community?
Yes, absolutely. So before the Sweat Obsessed was the Sweat Obsessed, I actually was calling it Quarantone. So for quarantine,
Yes.
a quarantone. The name was super catchy, and I was really just helping myself pass time. At the beginning of the pandemic, we really thought that this was going to be a 2 week ordeal. Haha, if only, you know, 2, 3 years later, I mean, we're still dealing with repercussions of it. But what I had started utilizing was Instagram Lives, and I was giving these free classes daily at 11 a.m. And people found it very consistent. They knew when I was going on. They knew that class was going to be recorded and saved and uploaded to YouTube later. So whether or not they were still working in person or that time frame didn't work for them, I think the consistency is what really drew a community, what really drew a crowd. In addition to utilizing Instagram during this time, I was also posting every single day, letting people know what the schedule was and what the upcoming class was. And so my entire life kind of went from being in person fitness, odd jobs during the day, whether it be dog walking or helping run Airbnbs, into everything virtual, everything filming myself online and getting really good at video editing and taking photos of myself. So I kind of took this huge step away from what I always thought were my main talents, was working in person with people, bringing that charisma to a class setting, but still trying to project that through, even when I'm kind of cheerleading you on through the tiny black hole of my camera.
Yes. Oh man, you really, just like the rest of the world, adapted so quickly. So many things that we thought needed to be in person went online. And it really, I think that consistency part was really important. Um, I just remember that being like, okay, a way to structure my day. I know Stefania is going to have that workout class, and it also speaks to a really key part about, I think, being what's needed to be successful on social media. Like whenever anybody asks me, hey, Shelby, like, do you have any advice for, I'm starting up a new page, or I want to grow my personal brand more. Like, what's your top piece of advice for me? And it's always just consistency. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be completely polished. Just like make sure you are posting consistently and people know that they can find you online. So that
Yeah,
is
absolutely. And when you think
a
about
really big
pages that
piece.
you follow and why you follow them, it is that consistency. You don't follow a page because they post inconsistently, or sometimes it's about this topic, sometimes it's about personal life. And so the times that I have seen my brand, my page grow the most, it is when I am zoned in and focused. And in addition to that consistency piece, like you just mentioned, Shelby, not everything has to be perfect, not everything's going to be perfect, right? But I think something we always need to remind ourselves as marketers, because anyone who owns a small business today is a marketer, is that what comes very easy and obvious to you is not obvious to your crowd. And so I was gently reminded of this when I visited some family back east, so I think of health tips all the time. I can't help myself. It's my business. So just going through the grocery store, like thinking about how I grocery shop, the things that I put on my list, how I formulate meals. To me, that's something that's so basic. I've been doing it for so many years off on my own. Well, when I visited my family back east, there wasn't a single vegetable in the whole house. So there's no way that you can tell me that balanced meals are happening in their home. Well, we forget this because we get so accustomed to what we are the expert in, that it seems like it's just obvious. Like, of course, people would know to get veggies when you go grocery shopping. Well, it's not so obvious for someone who doesn't also work in your field. And so when you think about who you're marketing to, you're not marketing to other people who are already doing what your program is, what your business is. You're marketing to people who need your program, who need your business. And so they need to know this common knowledge that you find so basic.
Yes, I think that's such a good point. Like, you really do know more than you think, especially if you've been like you in a field for 10 plus years. There's so much that you know that's second nature to you that for some other people might be news, new information. So really two key points that I'm taking out from what you're saying right now. One is that consistency piece for being successful online. And that other piece is really trusting yourself as a expert or a professional in your field, and really sharing out those pieces of advice or information that you picked up along the way. So, okay, you've talked about a win on social media, the TSO Quarantone series. I would love to hear about a time where you did something on social media and then you were like, okay, no, that doesn't work so much. This was, I'm not going to do that again. A social media fail.
Social media fail. So for me, something I get hard on myself about is that I'm a pretty social creature, and I do a lot of fun things, as we all do. We get invited, and something that has held me back, I think, in social media is that, like I just, criticized 2 minutes ago, you don't want to use your social media for everything in your life. And so sometimes I'll post all my social stuff, like such as my golf outings or my vacations. Well, if you're following me for advice on, health information and moving forward, my page is really going to be all about syncing up with your hormones. It's not relevant to be posting about my vacations. And maybe if I make a post about something, healthy I did, or something cycle syncing on my vacation, that's fine. But I think that when we can reflect on some of those very massively successful social media pages, there is a strategy, there is a plan, and they stick to that plan and strategy. They're not kind of bouncing all over and posting about one thing one day and another the other day, because what would be the point in following a stranger who isn't, focused? You've got your own friends to keep up with socially. So I think one word of advice that I personally have failed at multiple times, is if you are going to build out a business page, make it a business page. And of course you can post like, those little personal, intimate posts, that people get to like, know, and trust you with, love you even. However, really tie it always back into, what is it that you are the expert in? What is it that you're building? What is it that you're selling? What is it that you're pitching? Because realistically, you're always selling, no matter what you post about in a day. If you're giving out a free piece of advice, you are selling your trust to someone else, that you are the expert, that you know what you're talking about. So I would just say my biggest fail was really not recognizing the power that I had in my social media page, and then kind of floundering between the social lines with, the business mind as well.
Oh my gosh, so many gold nuggets of what you just shared. And really, I think the big piece there is a strategy. Like, so important to have a strategy when people ask me, going back to that question of, okay, what advice do you have for being successful on social media? It's that consistency piece, but then it's also like have some sort of game plan. Know what your message is, know who your audience is, know what you want to say to them, and then stay consistent on that message. And yeah, you also spoke to that balance of, okay, how much of my personal life do I share versus my business life? And of course, these social platforms, people do want to see a little bit of that personality and day in the life type of stuff, but so true to always bring it back to what your core message is. So, okay, two more questions for you. Short questions. One is, who is your favorite person or brand to follow online?
So currently, right now, it is Jessie and Sheppy, and her Instagram is the Glucose Goddess. I think it's just Glucose Goddess. And her book that she wrote, she's a scientist. She's not a nutritionist. She's not a doctor, but she's all about sharing information on how to stabilize your blood glucose levels. So she has about like 8 hacks, I think it is, that she does this with. But she is so crystal clear in her messaging. She makes it so basic. She basically shares such highly scientific information and presents it in a manner that a kindergartner can understand. And so she basically shares a lot of infographics that are a graph of a blood sugar spike. And she'll show if you eat a vegetable before your carbohydrate or before your dessert, how that can more even keel out your blood sugar spike versus when you eat it on an empty stomach, how out of control that spike is. Well, she sets a couple of really great things here. One, the visualization of what scientifically it's doing in your chemistry inside of your body, right? So that's something that we don't notice. We might be able to feel it when she describes the symptom, but I think she does a really great job at staying consistent with those infographics, for example. And then what she also does well is the consistency. So she's posting every day, whether the information is, a separate hack, how to read her graphics when you see it because you've seen it before. And so it's not always about reinventing the wheel, about, remaking these reels and, having your hair and makeup done and doing this like super out there, production. It can be very, very simple. You want to present people with information and in a way that they automatically are going to know what you're talking about, not something new and super confusing every single time.
That's a really good point. That not like recycling of information, but the familiarity of, oh, okay, I've seen this topic before. It's not completely new to me, but she's introducing maybe a little bit of new information each time or saying it in a different way. I'm thinking almost like with dance, you hear the same corrections over and over again before they really stick in your brain.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's round it out. If you touched on this a little bit earlier about advice, but if you could give one piece of advice to someone in your field on how to be successful on social media, what would it be?
Keep it simple. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, we all get wrapped up, we get overwhelmed. We think that we need to reinvent the wheel, that we need to, show a million different things in a million different ways. And like you just mentioned, people want familiarity. They want to know what you're talking about. They want to feel like they're learning from you. And you can save the more complex stuff, or whether that's like you're selling one-on-one packages or your online coaching program or you write a book. But for Instagram, people only have so much of an attention span. So break it down, keep it simple, make it digestible for people.
Perfect. That's great. All right, Stephania, I appreciate you so much. Thank you again for kicking off this series with me. And if you want to give Stephania a follow, her information will be at the bottom of this article. And also go ahead and check out her full written interview below. So thanks so much, Stephania.
Thank you so much, Shelby.